Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning into today's broadcast. It's the Friday, August 21st, 2026 episode of the Marco Dure Show, the only show where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Closing out the week this Friday segment, everybody, where we will now break down what's happening in our economy, as we always do. We're putting our stock market report under the necessary scrutiny as well today, as you know. But first, I realized I made an error yesterday on the show. Can you believe that? I couldn't believe it myself, to be honest with you. I was discussing with you the national debt, and I had told you that President Obama had quadrupled the debt in his reign of terror, when he wasn't dividing up our great nation by race or by sex or by political party or by culture. Yes, the great divider, Hussein Obama, was not somebody who quadrupled the debt, but he did double the debt, which is still pretty bad if you ask me. We're about $10 trillion from when he took office in 2009, and left with nearly $20 trillion, handing it over then to President Trump. So I was thinking, since, Obama had taken office, he really, in 2009, we have since then quadrupled the debt. So I wanted to make sure I clarified that with you. In the last 17 years, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we quadrupled our national debt to where it now sits at $40 trillion as of yesterday, and is only continuing to grow. Yep. Crazy when we think about it, folks. But I want to set the record straight, because I always do that with you. So no, Obama did not quadruple the debt, but he did double the debt. And we have quadrupled the debt since 2009 when he took office. Now, I will say this about Obama, too. We talk about core inflation, inflation of certain goods and services. Under Obama, from 2009 to 2017, this is a nice little fact you'll love so much. The cost of food and beverages inside the United States rose by roughly 58% in that short span of time. Can you believe that? So it would have cost you $20 in 2009. You'd be paying at least $31.60 for the same exact damn thing in 2017. Can you imagine that? Obama doesn't ever get enough credit for what he did, folks, to destroy the nation inside and out. Anyways. Thought you'd all enjoy that very much. So no, Obama did not quadruple the debt. He doubled the debt, folks. My God, $10 trillion. Trump is not much better, as we know, spending already $11.5 trillion in his first term and a year and a half into his second term. So he's a little bit over Obama, but he's still not done yet. Let me just say that to you. And I want to go into a little bit of more detail about what's taking place with the bond market, and the Treasury market, if you will. And why hasn't this worked? Why has Bessent continued to drop the ball? And I got to tell you, it's because he's not focused. Now, I don't believe that Scott Bessent's an idiot. He's probably a smart guy. I don't know the guy. But he's not done the right things in order to mitigate a lot of these problems. He's more hyper-focused on what's taking place in Iran and not what's taking place inside the United States. His real preoccupation should be what's happening right here at our own borders. But he's not doing that. And so when he made the announcement on Wednesday that, they were going to have this big buyback program, that we were going to double the bonds in which the United States buys, starting in early September into November, and it sounded like a worthwhile idea. Now, the yields yesterday obviously quickly rose yet again, and now we're seeing the bond market now for the 10-year yield over 4.7%. on its way upwards to 5%, where when we hit 5%, ladies and gentlemen, we won't be able to service our debt. That means we cannot pay back what we borrow, which is a big problem. I think you'd all agree with me on that one. And so, folks, Bessent then retorts, he comes back out, and he says, you know what? This intervention was merely aimed at providing market liquidity, not trying to control the yield curve. Well, again, he wanted that to happen because he said he couldn't believe why that was going back up again. So, of course, he wanted that to happen. He thought the rhetoric would be the end-all, be-all, and it was not, sadly enough for him. But don't worry, folks. Scott Bessent says we've got a big toolkit. We got a big toolkit. He just hasn't opened it up yet. He hasn't looked inside to see what's in there. But don't worry, folks. He is going to fix everything. So I guess trying to buy, what, $4 billion in Treasury bonds instead of $2 billion he thought was going to be enough to satisfy investors, foreign buyers of our debt. Wasn't going to happen, folks. Wasn't going to happen. Now, he has come back and he said, though, that he does want to do bigger and more frequent buybacks, not just in this little interim 3-month period. So he said this could be the start of an initial round of stepping up buybacks. And so, of course, he thinks that's going to be beneficial to him. He also wants to do something with smaller auctions, if you will, folks. So that would be the department simply would just cut down on the level of longer dated debt and its issuing and shifting into shorter term bills. That's what he also wants to try. He also criticized Janet Yellen for doing the exact same thing. So that should be a big, I don't think this is going to work since nothing worked under Janet Yellen. He also wants to change the maturity composition of outstanding debt. So this essentially would be a larger scale version of smaller auctions and would require market participations to kind of snap up a lot of these shorter duration and lower yields in this debt, which again would be another risky proposition. For instance, global investors know that struggling sovereigns often resort to shorter dated issuance. So that's, I think most people would figure this out. Any head of any central bank would figure out this strategy, probably. So he's got a lot to work on, Scott Bessent. Nothing seems to be working. But what he should really be working on is how to bring down inflation. That's what he should be doing. He should be working on how to cripple the Iranian economy. He should be working on how to boost the United States economy. That's his job. That's what he should be doing. Instead, he's going out there and trying to put on different sanctions, devalue currencies like the Iranian rial. Why is he not working on what's taking place inside the United States? That's what I want to know. Now, whatever route he chooses, he can choose to do nothing, let the market kind of sort it out for himself. I think that would probably be the best option. But he'll probably try to do something else again in terms of rhetoric to kind of come out there and say, this is what we're working on, but it's not going to work because people see the writing on the wall. They see the $40 trillion in debt. They see the already lower bond prices, the higher yields. They see the low GDP. They see the devaluing of the petrodollar. They see countries moving away from the petrodollar. Hence, that's what BRICS is all about, taking down the United States in that sense. Let me play you Scott Bessent, though, ladies and gentlemen. This was him just yesterday. This is what he had to say when he was speaking about this buyback program. I'll let you decide if this is worthwhile or not.
We're trying to signal that we think that this is a thinly traded area of the market, that we're in August, and there's been a lot of corporate issuance that's influenced the market, and we believe that there are many underlying factors that the market is not looking at, and we are going to make a market in these. We routinely do buybacks, and we're going to increase the size of the buyback. And Sarah, I would note that it could be more than the $4 billion per issue.
Now, this is what he continues to say. He thinks it's going to be worthwhile. I don't see countries like Japan and China coming out and saying, you know what, now we'll continue to buy the U.S. bonds again. I don't see that happening. I got to be honest with you, folks. It's not going to work, and the reason why it's not going to work is because people are abandoning the dollar. They're not playing ball with the United States. The way that we're acting, again, look at what Scott Bessent did in Iran earlier this year. He devalued the Iranian rial, caused the economic protests that took place. At the same time, we armed the Mujahideen al-Khalqs, the Baluchis, the Kurds inside of Iran to go and attack the government. And, people understand this. They understand what's going on. These other countries get this. This is the way the United States is carrying itself. How can you have good relations with a country that will try to do everything they can to tear down you and your people? Ask yourself that question. Now, again, announcing the buybacks, like he can do that all he wants. I really don't believe that this is going to have any effect on the bond rates. I don't believe so. I don't think it's going to work. And the reason it's not working, I think, folks, is again because of what I just told you. They're all abandoning it. Now, he can work with Kevin Warsh, I think, on spending. That would probably be the best alternative to try to bring down inflation that way. They probably would also have to raise interest rates, which I know President Trump does not want to do. He wants the interest rates low so people can borrow money. That way they can have more access to money, the more money out. Again, the more money in circulation, the better it is for the M1 money supply. That's what he's thinking about long term. But the problem is, ladies and gentlemen, we are $40 trillion in debt. Think about that for a second. $40 trillion in debt. We are borrowing everything we have right now. That's what it comes down to. We're not living within our means. We're obviously spending more than what we take in through taxation every single year. We have for quite some time. So whatever Scott Bessent decides to do next, I don't know what he'll choose. I really don't know. I just don't believe he's going to bring these rates down. You can't do that. And let me just remind all of you, ladies and gentlemen, when you have 4.7% inflation, the only way to start to bring down that inflation is to raise interest rates, at least 1 percentage point above that. So we are looking at what? 5.7% inflation, 5.7% interest rates to bring down that 4.7. So in other words, making it more difficult for people to borrow. And Trump does not want to do that. So I think we're sitting at right now between 3.5, 3.75% interest rates. That number's got to go up if we want to start bringing down that inflation. Now, Kevin Warsh has kept things as is. We'll see how that works out. Again, nothing is slowing down that inflation as of yet, ladies and gentlemen. And by the way, let me move on to this other article out of Bloomberg. This one's another important topic we need to discuss, our own currency itself. When does insolvency actually become a reality for us? I want you to think about that for a second. When does the Federal Reserve just simply say, you can't pay this back to us, it's over? And just so we understand this, the Federal Reserve is an independent bank. It is not a U.S.-owned bank. It's owned by other people. I'll let you figure out who owns it. But this is a big problem, a very, very big problem. Because, again, the intervention done by Bessent the other day is potentially damaging, the rise in the borrowing costs inside the United States, and ultimately the dollar will bear that brunt. That's what it comes down to. And again, we already continue to see the devaluing of the currency in the United States as time goes on. You're seeing people move away from the currency. You're seeing countries like China, Japan starting to dump their Treasury bonds, and they're not buying them back because they don't see any value in it. And by the way, what also happens, for instance, when you are a foreign nation and you decide, hey, we want to get our money back, and the U.S. just doesn't have that money in circulation to give you back your money. What happens then? So while China is a big buyer of the debt, I don't think that's going to be for some time now. I think that's eventually going to fade out. Call it what you will. But I do believe that's the next step for China. China knows they're holding all the cards right now. Trump could say we're leading AI, which he did the other day. I don't even understand why he said that. We're certainly leading, not in AI, we're certainly leading China in the debt to GDP ratio, I'll tell you that much. But it's very troubling, folks, to see this. And, of course, the active role in keeping borrowing costs down will take place as a result of the dollar being hit yet again. You're seeing a lot of people diversifying away from the dollar. And I believe when they see these yield rates of these bonds start to hit over the 5% threshold, and you will not be able to, at that point, service the U.S. debt, I think you're going to see a lot of people really start to significantly move away from it and, of course, just dump that debt. That's what it's going to happen. They're going to dump those Treasury bonds, and then we're in lots of trouble. I hate to say that to you, folks, but that's just the truth of the matter. That's what it all comes down to. So the outstanding 10 to 30-year bonds, folks, I think we might be the ones that have to buy it up at some point because no one else probably will. And that's troubling. It's problematic. I don't know how we can exist as a society if our currency is not being desired, or it certainly appears less attractive as time goes on. But really, any attempt to engineer the U.S. yields lower can really reduce a lot of those attractiveness to the dollar itself. And that's what you're seeing Scott Bessent do over time. So no shock with any of that, folks. That's why I'm saying I don't know what Scott Bessent is really focused on. I don't know what he's doing. I got to be honest with you. Doesn't seem to make much of any sense, at least from what I can tell. But yes, the dollar struggles. And as the dollar struggles, what have I told you before? The price of gold continues to go up. Now, again, all this has been manufactured, by the way. And you ask, why is that, Joyce? Let me explain this to you. The bond prices fall, which of course caused the yields to rise. That's what took place on Thursday. And a lot of it has to do with what we have done inside the United States, largely this war with Iran. So you're seeing a lot of the geopolitical risk. You're seeing the Middle Eastern tensions, of course, naturally. You're seeing the price of oil spike. That's a big problem. That has an effect on the bond market, has an effect on inflation, has an effect on the dollar, and of course, gold prices as well. You're looking at inflation. You're looking at debt concerns now. $40 trillion, folks. How do we pay that down? I mean, I'm open to hear this. Where are the fiscal conservatives? Where have they been? The last 100 years. Where have they been to pay this debt down? Certainly nowhere to be found. But again, these factors make long-term bonds less attractive, again, pushing the yields up higher. That's what it comes down to. And of course, you also have the corporate borrowing pressure as well. You have heavy issuance of corporate bonds by big tech. Again, the government's bullish on the AI and the data center projects right now that most people are trying to get away from. Even some politicians now that once supported it want to get away from these data centers. We'll see if that actually happens. So I told you earlier, folks, let me shift your attention over to this. I told you before that Scott Bessent, sadly enough, he's not focused on the U.S. economy, but what's taking place inside of Iran. And by the way, inside Iran, they are struggling. Don't misunderstand me. I just don't believe it's anything that's going to cause them to capitulate to the United States. This comes out of the Associated Press. It says that Tehran's grocery stores are well-stocked, but many families can barely afford the basics. You have unemployment soaring, 9.1%, probably even higher than that. You're seeing by the end of this year, an estimation of 70% inflation inside the country. Now, how long they can go through with this, only time will tell. But I still do not believe that any of this is going to cause the Iranian government to grovel at the feet of Donald Trump. Certainly not by a long shot. I think what you'll see is a double down on what's taking place inside the Strait, the economic pressure that exists already, and again, it could turn back into military escalation. I think that's a possibility. It could happen. I'm not saying it will happen, but it definitely could happen. But I think what you're going to see, especially from the sanctions Trump is now claiming the economic D-Day, that's what he's describing it as. I think what you're going to see is a lot of these other countries that are, again, friendly with the Russians and the Iranians and the Chinese, they're all in this kind of access with each other. India, Pakistan, you name it, they're going to be beginning to trade with one another. They're going to be moving away from cooperating with the United States, certainly with these sanctions. Now, remember, these sanctions are only effective if you're using U.S. dollars. If they move away from that, which I believe they will, and you've seen this with the Iranians. You saw when they closed the Strait of Hormuz. They said the only way to get through is not to pay in the Iranian rial, but to pay in the Chinese yuan. So they're ditching the dollar, and I think China's very happy about that. Now, whether the yuan becomes the world reserve currency, I don't know. I don't know what would replace the dollar in that status. Only time would tell. But you're seeing a lot of these countries move away from it. So the U.S. is limited as to what they can do because, again, if they're not using dollars, they're not using that currency, they really can't put those sanctions on them. They can't really enforce it, if you will. And they can put the sanctions on. They can have the naval blockade, too. Again, how effective is that going to be? I mean, Iran can still get their exports out. We know that Pakistan itself opened up 6 different trade routes in terms of transportation, and that just puts everything on its way into Southeast Asia, into India, and what have you. And we know that, of course, we have the Belt and Road Initiative. Again, the railway going from Iran all the way through into Western China. So there's other routes of which they can trade, using the Caspian to the north to trade with Russia. There are other ways to get around the U.S. sanctions. So if you had told me this last year, I would say, okay, we've got leverage over them. But the Iranians are looking outside the box. They're looking at what they can do to circumvent the United States. And they're not expecting the U.S. to come to the table. They're not expecting the United States to lift sanctions or to give the money for reconstruction or give the frozen assets back. It's not going to happen. I doubt that very much that is ever going to happen. I don't think Trump would do that. So the Iranians have said, okay, we're moving on then. We'll have our own toll system inside the Strait. We'll generate money that way. We'll do it this way then. That's why you had Trump threatening the Omanis earlier this week, threatening to bomb them, our ally in the region, to bomb them. Okay. Again, I don't know how that's going to work. But you see a lot of contention. I think a lot of it stems from Trump being upset about not having the ability to control the Iranians, which he believes he should be able to do. Just isn't going to happen. But again, Trump doesn't understand a lot about the economy, and I think that's another big problem. When Trump first took office, I was under the impression the economy is going to boom under President Trump. I believe that. And by the way, in his first term, we had a fairly decent economy. I will say that to you. And we loved him for that. And again, we wanted to get away from this Obama era stagnation that was taking place. And we thought, hey, this is it. This is where we need to go. We need to focus on free market enterprise, no new wars, doing all this, keeping inflation low, keeping food and energy prices low. This was going to help build out the United States. And then when he came into office the second time, he said, hey, we've got these investments coming in. And I said, this is great. If we can get $21 trillion pumped in the U.S. economy, we'll be on our way. We'll be booming. This will be great. But folks, we have yet to see $1 of that coming to the United States yet. And I doubt we ever will now. That we've alienated a lot of these countries now, including countries like Saudi Arabia or Japan. I don't think we'll see those big number investments. Certainly we haven't seen anything as of yet. This is President Trump, though, being asked again the other day about what he thought about the bond market, and then he goes into a little rant about interest rates. Take a listen.
President. On the bond market, is the administration done enough to stabilize the bond market after yesterday?
Well, I think it is, but I mean, it's very sad. Every time we do great, we announce great numbers, the interest rates go up. And they go up because they want to stop inflation. They should go down because the country's strong. I see countries like Switzerland where they're the number one lowest interest rates, 0.5%, and we pay 3.5%. And yet, if we stop doing business, for instance, I have the absolute right to cut off all business with a country like Switzerland, like anything. So why are they prime if I can cut off the business and they are no longer functional? And yet they're considered to be like an elite country. And I don't want to single them out because there's 60 countries like that. They live off the United States. So why are we paying higher interest rates than them? In the old days, we used to pay the lowest interest rate, no matter how we were doing, because we sort of generate for the whole world. And I want to see it where interest rate, and I have to tell you, we have a wonderful chairman. I think he's doing a great job. The problem is he has a board, and it's a political board. It's people put in by Obama, Biden, and me. And there are quite a few members still left, as you understand. And so they vote to raise interest rates. I don't know if they're doing it because they think they're doing a good thing or because they like the politics of it. But my point is, years ago, 25 years ago, when the country announced good numbers, interest rates went down because we had a stronger country. Now when we announce good numbers, the better they are, the worse it is for interest rates.
Notice what he's saying to you. And he keeps going on and on about this. Oh, we have good numbers. How come everything's not adjusting because we have good numbers? Listen to what he said. He said, when we had a strong economy, indicating, of course, that we don't have a strong economy right now. Folks, when we have $40 trillion in debt, when we have, again, high inflation, rising inflation, when we have supply chain issues, all these things are a major, major problem. We have low GDP numbers revised down to 1.5%. Again, low job numbers, low job growth, low labor force participation numbers. This signals to other people that things are not going well. And I think for Trump to come out and say, hey, we've announced that everything's great, why is the interest rates up? Well, you can't lower interest rates when you have inflation rising and rising at the rate it is. That's what it comes down to. That's the problem. And that's why I don't understand why he's kind of aloof to all this. I mean, he should know this. He is the president of the United States. So that's why I was just concerned as to why he's saying all this. But it comes back to kind of what Scott Bessent did when he reacted to all this. He was shocked when he couldn't realize why the yields didn't continue to drop because, again, it's a rhetoric. When you look at what's going on, you listen to the concern of the economy, the price of those bonds gets lower, so therefore the yields have got to rise. They become less desirable, less attractive. the price goes down, the yields have got to rise. People don't want to get these low yields. They want something for their investment on their return. That's what it comes down to. So Bessent can announce every single day, hey, we'll quadruple what we buy. It doesn't matter. What are you going to buy, what, $8 billion in these Treasury bonds? No one cares. No one cares. That's the problem. That's what it comes down to, sadly enough. So I would have hoped that Trump would have understood this. And again, it comes back down to we manufacture this ourselves. What do I mean by that? Look at what we did inside the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is the critical choke point in the global economy, whether we like to admit it or not. It is. It is a crucial choke point, just like the Bab el-Mandeb Strait is another crucial choke point. The Panama Canal, same thing, getting goods to where they need to go quicker. Okay. But when we hear politicians talk about this war and how we need to continue on with it, and we hear on Fox News, again, I love Fox News, I do, certain shows, but when I hear these generals come on and they start talking about more war, more this, more bombs, more this, let's drop this, let's consider dropping a nuke, I say to myself, do you really want to alienate yourself from the entire world to drop a nuclear weapon on a country that never attacked you in 47 years? Let me just put it to you like that, folks. I see this on social media too. Well, they've been attacking us for 47 years. So really, when's the last time they attacked us? Give me the example. Who do they attack? What state in the United States did they attack? Who in the United States did they kill? You won't get much of an answer if you ask reasonable questions like that, folks. Anyways, the real economic damage really appears in the shipping rates, the insurance premiums we're seeing right now, the refinery margins, the diesel crack spread that's going on right now, the soaring energy costs. And of course, ultimately, the government borrowing more because we just don't have it. So, war does not remain confined just to the battlefield. It's in every single household through inflation, and we have inflation rising. And Trump needs to be aware of this and bring those prices down, but he seems not the slightest concerned about it, which, again, I really can't understand this. I really don't. You know, Washington can claim the Strait is open, while, of course, Iran remains to say that it's closed. Okay. Most statements are, again, political propaganda, if you will. It comes down to the ship owners. It comes down to the insurers. It comes down to the commodity traders who will determine whether or not the waterway is commercially open for them. And by the way, they still have to coordinate with Iran. So I always tell you Iran is the one that's controlling the Strait because they can just attack your vessel if they want. They can sink your ship if they want. And those ship owners, those insurers, will decide, is this worthwhile to try to traverse the Strait or not? So the idea, of course, comes back to what the Iranians have done. They're not worried about the U.S. They're worried about what Iran will do if they don't follow through with the Persian Gulf Strait Authority. And so, folks, when I say all this to you, it's because we're not interested in negotiations. We don't want to come to the table and speak to the Iranians. And we need to. We have to. We have to get this strait opened up. The longer it stays closed as it is, or if it stays shut off because of what I just mentioned to you, ship owners, insurers don't want to take that risk, the global economy struggles as a result. So you don't get the necessary 34% of the global oil out. You don't get the 25% of the liquefied natural gas, or the 44% of the helium, or the aluminum, or the sulfuric acid, or the urea, or whatever it may be that's prevalent in that crucial choke point. And when that offshoots everything else, you have problems in the global economy, particularly, especially with fertilizer. And then, ladies and gentlemen, if we don't have this nitrogen-based fertilizer, you have famine all throughout the global south, which is another major problem. You're going to see migration out of these countries like no other. Is that what we really want? Is this what Trump wants to be remembered for? I don't think so. Something tells me he does not. Again, once this confidence collapses, again, the trade will continue to retreat, regardless of how many officials come and tell you every single night that the strait is open. It's a bunch of nonsense. That's what it is. It comes down to nonsense, and it's our fault because we didn't have to do this. We don't have to do this. We could leave the region right now. The Iranians would open the strait as they, again, see fit. They could do that. They will charge a toll. They will charge a fee. But now we're talking about the Iranians cutting crucial cables in the Persian Gulf, which would devastate the entire region. This is what they're being resorted to now because we're not interested in diplomacy. So we're in lots of trouble with this, and this is far from being over. But I do want to share this with you as well. I saw this puff piece, and by the way, I like the International Business Times. I just don't believe what they're saying in this article is true. I'm not saying they're lying. I'm saying they're reporting on what has been said to Axios, which again, sometimes good, sometimes bad. I don't trust this at all, though, because I've yet to see a government official come out and say this on either side. But now what they're trying to suggest is that the U.S. military is carrying out missions to help vessels transit the Strait of Hormuz despite Iran's blockade, which is really just them suggesting that, hey, if you cross this, we'll hit you with some drones. Or we could throw a missile into your stern of your ship and sink you, blow up your engine. It doesn't matter what we do. But here's what Axios said. Get a load of this. They cited an official familiar with the matter. That's their source, apparently. And what they've said is that the strategy has managed to guarantee the shipping of about 10 million barrels of oil per day coming through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, let me pause for a second. That would be roughly about half the capacity of what was happening on February the 27th. Every single day, you had about 21 million barrels of oil traverse the Strait. Okay, a lot of oil, right? No doubt about it. So if this was happening, if we had this, again, surge of oil beginning to start to flow again, why would we see the price of gas, again, in every single market, as you'll soon see, staying above what it should and continuing to rise? That's my question to you. And wouldn't Trump come out and suggest that this is happening right now? Who is this official? I hope it's not Chris Wrong, the energy secretary. Chris Wrong. Chris is always wrong and not right. There we go. So what they're saying, though, is between 15 and 20 oil tankers are entering and exiting the waterway at night through a channel alongside the coast of Oman, the same Omani coast that is now playing ball with the Iranians. U.S. forces are not only escorting, but they're also helping pick up oil from countries in the region and then exit. First of all, what forces? Seriously, what forces are allowing this to happen that the Iranians are not seeing right now? That's what I want to know. Here's the statement. We've been controlling the southern lane of the Strait of Hormuz for 2 months now. The IRGC can be a nuisance, but they don't control the strait. We do, is what this official told the outlet. Now, again, I think this is more ways to try to bring down the price of oil because it's rising right now. It's going up. It's not going back down. If oil was getting to where it needed to go, you would see the price of oil start to drop again. You'd see Trump announce that we've declared victory in the strait. We control the strait. And it couldn't be better. We're not seeing that. We're seeing the exact opposite. We're seeing the prices continuing to rise. Again, there's no negotiations. Why would the Iranians allow these ships? By the way, we've seen in the past, ships continuing to try to hug the Omani coastline are getting hit because they're refusing to follow what the Iranians have said. I don't believe this. I don't believe we have any jets in the region either. They're saying the military is using fighter jets to protect vessels from potential missiles and drones launched from Iran. Would the U.S. government actually put our jets in harm's way of potentially getting hit with a drone or a missile to escort an oil tanker through? And just to remind you, you all remember Operation, was it Freedom, was it called? I think it was called Operation Freedom. I forget the name of some of these operations. But it's called Operation Freedom. We're going to have our ships escort vessels through. We couldn't even get our ships into the region last time because, again, the Iranians said, turn around or you're going to get hit. And we turned around to avoid getting hit. And those vessels that didn't listen got struck in the region and caught fire. So I got to be honest with you. I don't buy this. I don't buy that we have 10 million barrels of oil coming through the strait every single day. Certainly, I would love for that to happen. But I don't buy that this is taking place. So I really don't believe this article. I think this is just, again, more talk. I don't believe this is backed by anything. And again, as time goes on, I think what we end up seeing is that it's dwindling. The traffic is dwindling in the region. It's not getting better, it's getting worse. For all the reasons I just laid out to you. These insurers of these ships, the ship owners, these commodity traders, they don't want to take a risk on losing everything they've got. And so we could claim economic D-Day all we want. I don't see the Iranians backing down for this. I really don't see that taking place, sadly enough. So I think this is more obfuscation from what's really going on, give the illusion that, again, the oil's flowing so that the oil prices come down. The Trump administration has no other way to get the oil prices down other than rhetoric, because militarily we don't control the Strait, and diplomatically we can't get the Iranians to budge on this. So that's where we stand on all that. I think this is just, again, nothing more than words, sadly enough. Oh, by the way, another great topic we should discuss. We talked about this earlier this week. High beef prices, right? That's always a complete bummer to many people. Burgers, steaks, you name it. We want their prices to go down, don't we, folks? I do too, don't you? Of course, who wouldn't? We all want it to go down. Here's the problem, though. The Trump administration just came out, and here's what they came out saying. Let me read to you what President Trump said, just a little bit of it. He said, "Today I concluded a deal to substantially lower the price of ground beef for working American families. As everyone knows, under President Biden, beef prices soared at their fastest rate, and the American beef herd fell to its smallest size in modern history." Well, that's taking place under you, Mr. President. I added that last part in there. "As we work to rebuild this herd and help our ranchers, for the next 90 days, the United States will allow up to 300,000 metric tons of product for ground beef to be imported without a quota." No quota tariff. There we go. "We have a commitment that this beef will be sold at 25% lower prices." Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Make what does he say at the bottom? Great American beef herd to grow again. There we go. All right. So, while this sounds nice, let me tell you why this is a slap in the face to the American rancher and the American farmer. First things first, this is going to have a devastating effect on their pricing and, of course, their product being bought at the market, because they're not going to be able to compete with the lower prices. So what Trump should be focusing on, and I said this to you time and time again, to tame the food inflation of beef or chicken or whatever it may be, you've got to find a way to make sure that you have lower producer pricing. That's what it comes down to. Lower the cost for production. So you want to make sure feed is cheaper, water prices are cheaper, whatever it may be. It needs to all get cheaper. Cheaper sawdust to have bedding in the barns, cheaper electricity prices. Make it so everything is cheaper for our farmers. That's what it should be. But we're not doing that. Right now, it costs more to raise the cattle than what the price is, what they're getting afterwards when they sell the cattle at auction or to the beef packers. That's what's happening. So they're actually losing money. And somehow, and I still don't really understand this, even some of the big packers that set a lot of these prices, they seem to be losing money as well. Now, that could be, again, their operation, what they're utilizing, I don't know. And we're seeing Tyson moving some plants around, closing some plants, bringing up plants in other parts of the country. That's no good either if we don't have the right processors that are producing food in the United States. That's another big problem. So I think Trump is really starting to look at this saying, okay, Tyson just closed 2 big plants. What we've got to do now is bring in beef now from the wherever. I mean, I'm sure some of it's going to come in from his pal Melee in Argentina, if you will. He did that before, too. This is a problem, though, because now you're flooding the beef market with cheaper prices from countries abroad. And I'm glad, by the way, he admitted that it's going to be lowering the prices if you don't have a tariff on it, which I've said time and time again. But what the American farmers, how are they going to keep up with this now? That's the question. Because now we're dealing with inflation. We're dealing with, again, cost issues as far as how to get the goods to where they need to go in the United States. Everything's going to cost more for the rancher. They're going to have to pay those prices. That's what most people don't seem to understand. So really, I mean, again, this is one of Trump's biggest constituency, farmers, ranchers, big agriculture in the United States. These are his constituents. These are his people. And instead of saying, you know what, we need to bring in more herds in the United States to our local ranchers, we need to bring down the cost of water, we need to bring down the cost of food and feed and fertilizer and all this other nonsense. If he did that, we'd actually grow our herd. But we're not doing that. We're making less incentive to actually produce because you're bringing beef from abroad. I mean, this would be like saying, you know what, we're going to bring car prices down. We're going to start bringing in more cars from Germany, from Japan, from China, from here, from there. And, you know, Ford and General Motors, good luck. Good luck keeping up with those lower prices. By the way, we're not going to put tariffs on them. I mean, what would you say to that? The auto workers would say, what the hell are you doing? It's gonna just get us out of the market. No one's gonna buy the Fords or the General Motors vehicles, or they're gonna go with these other cars because it's cheaper to produce in these countries, and it's now cheaper to bring them in because you have these tariffs on them. A big L for President Trump on this one, and of course a big L for our farmers who get up every single day and work very, very hard to feed America. Sadly enough, I think what Trump is doing is, again, not going to be helpful to our farmers, and I don't think they'll appreciate this at all. That's the bottom line about all this. And by the way, the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, one of their spokesmen, came out and said that while America's cattle producers share the goal of keeping groceries affordable for consumers, flooding the market with government-subsidized below-market beef is not the way to rebuild the American cattle herd. He's absolutely right about this. Absolutely right about this. So while it might seem good, folks, for the time being, it's not going to be good long-term, especially for our farmers and our ranchers inside the United States. The people we actually should be concerned with and obviously trying to ease their cost. All right, folks, let's jump into our stock market report today. Let's jump into it. Let's look at the Dow Jones. We got trading at $53,290.18 a share, up 1.01%. S&P 500 also in the green, up 0.49%, trading at $7,678.61 a share. And the NASDAQ trading at $26,194.65 a share, up 0.49% today. So we're seeing, again, ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing a little bit of a, the tech stocks in this. This is the problem here. The tech stocks are what's keeping up these top marginal stocks right now. That's what it comes down to. A lot of them are bullish on AI, if you will. And so you're seeing, for instance, a lot of these dominant sectors really kind of propping up a lot of these top marginal rates, if you will. Now, that's why that's happening, by the way. When the government's bullish on something, folks, you're going to see more of it. And that's why you're seeing these top marginal stocks with the record highs right now. So that's why that's taking place, as you'll see. Let's look at some cryptocurrencies, though. Bitcoin is up significantly today, and in the past 7 days, up significantly. Look at this, per share, $77,265.30 a share, up 6.38% from yesterday's close. Bitcoin on track for a 23% weekly gain as investors' optimism floods back. We got Ether. It's been a long day, folks. Trading at $2,417.88, up 3.39%. So again, folks, what a week for these crypto stocks. Let me tell you. So we have massive exchange trade funds inflows we had on just August 19th, just for Bitcoin alone. $517 million poured into it. We have some short squeeze happening as well. We see a lot of these Treasury buyback doubling. Again, lower yields again. So we have stronger risk appetites. You have some people now switching off where they're investing right now. This is what this is all about. And of course, you have the regulatory optimism coming from the White House on the cryptos. So therefore, you have high momentum, high volume, strong risk appetite coming into these crypto stocks. Again, same thing with Ether. You've got, let's see, on August 19th, $189 million poured in, the biggest since October of 2025. Huge short liquidities taking place right now. You've got institutional adaptation, Morgan Stanley selecting Galaxy as a validator. So again, you have a strong breakout, but increasingly overbought taking place happening with Ether right now. So crypto's having a hell of a week, folks. I got to tell you, hell of a week with them. Let's jump into our tech stocks, though. NVIDIA trading at $214.98 right now, down 0.86%. We've got Apple trading at $309.81 right now, down 0.48% today. Amazon is trading at $259.64, down 0.18%. And Alphabet up 1.48% right now, just over 5 points, trading at $345.71 a share right now. Looking over at Meta Platforms, trading at $550.86 a share, up 0.92%. Microsoft trading at $481.83 right now, up 0.14%. And Advanced Micro Devices in the green as well, up 0.49%, trading at $471.75 a share. Micron Technology, down 0.67% today, trading at $967.76 a share. And finally, Dell Technologies, up at 0.79% today, almost 3.5 points, trading at $438.21 a share. Yep, folks, we're looking at NVIDIA, we're looking at Alphabet, Amazon, leading in the AI and the cloud growth. We have Meta invested heavily also in AI, in the Meta space, if you will. Microsoft growth is a little slower today. Dell and Advanced Micro Devices, Micron, AI-related demand, but smaller market impacts for this week. Not a shock there. Again, government's bullish on it, so therefore you're seeing some gain this week still, regardless. Let's look at our precious metals, folks. Everything in the green this week. We've got gold trading at $4,679.40 a share right now, up 2.36%. Silver trading just under $70 at $69.57 a share, up 2.15%. Copper right now is trading at $6.58 a share, up 1.79% right now. Looking pretty good there, too. Let's look over here at, let me get my numbers up. Palladium trading at $1,887.30 a share, up 2.62%. And palladium trading at $1,347 flat, up 0.64% today. Looking very good, folks. Folks, I'm shocked with the gold, too, by the way. Very, very good week for gold right now. It seems to be getting back into that higher threshold right now and sustaining right now. Again, we're seeing a weaker U.S. dollar, folks. So when the dollar gets weaker, expect those gold prices to go up, especially as the Treasury buyback expansion confidence seems to be in the tank as time goes on. We're also seeing some renewed concerns over the U.S. debt, so therefore looking over at the gold, the precious metals, looking into those as safe haven assets, of course. And you also got strong central bank interest in gold reserves, so therefore a big structural driver for all of that. No shock there. Silver, same thing, higher on industrial demand, weaker yields. Platinum, again, higher on the broad precious metal momentum, but still platinum climbing over 3%, looking very good. And palladium, same thing, higher on the modest auto sector support as well. So looking very, very good, folks, this week, especially for these precious metals, everything in the green. Not a big shock there. Let's jump over to our oil, ladies and gentlemen. Everyone's focus right now, as one could imagine. Let's take a quick look at West Texas Intermediate. Right now trading at $86.82 a share, down barely, 0.01%. Little change there. Brent crude trading just over $94 at $94.04 a share, up 0.28% today. Again, we've got very little change after Iran's president indicates that Tehran wants the war to end soon, but not yet open. Looking over at Dubai crude, ladies and gentlemen, today trading at $73.81 a share, up 0.45%. And we've got Murbayne crude trading at $74.96 a share, down 1.19%. Western Canadian Select right now is trading at $57.46 a share, up 1.16%. Urals crude trading at $63.93 a share, up 1.69% today. Not a shock there either. So, folks, what we're seeing again, especially with what's going on with oil in the United States and oil globally, folks, again, we're seeing some bullish to neutral range right now. Brent crude obviously commanding the wide premium over West Texas Intermediate. So we have a lot of supply chain tightening right now, especially from OPEC. A lot of the geopolitical tensions, especially inside the Persian Gulf. Think Murbayne, think Dubai crude. So a lot is happening right now, folks. And the inventories are rising, but are not at levels that they would be at the sell-off right now, keeping these prices elevated. So, again, everything's up in the air with the war, and if the war ends sooner, I think you'll see that straight. If it were open, you'd see those prices, again, continue to drop, but we're not. We're seeing the prices elevate or stabilize as time goes on. Not a shock, folks. Not in the slightest. All right, let's move on, folks. We got some other great articles. We got about 10 minutes in the program remaining, so let's jump right into it. Let's take a look at Mikie Sherrill out of New Jersey. And she now signs a sweeping new abortion law that could criminalize prayer outside of clinics. I guess freedom of speech is not that important to her. Let me show you just a little clip of Mikie Sherrill right now. And by the way, I'll digress into why this is such a stupid bill right now. There's nothing that needs to be happening, especially with this. There was no reason to sign this bill, yet for some reason she thought it would be a great idea. Let's take a listen to her.
I came here to this Planned Parenthood right after Trump's hand-picked Supreme Court overturned Roe and turned back the clock on our rights. We knew then that states like New Jersey would have to stand in the breach and protect the freedoms that generations of women have fought for. In the past 4 years, 13 states, 1-3, have enacted total abortion bans. It's easier to get an AR-15 in the United States than it is to get an abortion.
Oh, my. And what is an abortion, Miss Sherrill? Would you like to describe that to us? What actually is an abortion? Well, they never tell us. They speak, just around it as if it's not really a big deal. Now, she begins by talking about the overturn of Roe v. Wade, of course, in 2022. Again, I got to remind you, folks. What the Supreme Court did was not ban abortion, but simply say your state has the right to decide how they would like to handle it. So when she says that 13 states have had more restrictions on abortion, well, that's up to the values of that state. Obviously, your state doesn't value life like they would in, say, Oklahoma, where Governor Kevin Stitt is one of the most pro-life, has signed in most of the pro-life legislation in the country right now. California has different values than, let's say, Arizona, and vice versa. So you're going to have different types of legislation. Now, what she comes out and says there, she wants it to make it, obviously, more accessible, just like Governor Healy did back in Massachusetts was it last week, if I'm not mistaken? Allowing abortion up to the time of birth. Again, pretty radical, if you ask me. That is a life in there, folks. I will tell you that, of course. But she comes out and she says in this, she's trying to intertwine reproductive rights with gender-affirming care and, of course, creating new strict criminal penalties for any one of those who intentionally interferes with individuals seeking or providing these so-called, quote-unquote, medical services. Okay. Now, here's what it comes down to. Here's everything about this. She signs this into law, again, of course, making sure that, of course, anyone simply out-of-state patients traveling to receive so-called quote-unquote care obviously is not stopped in any single way. This is what she's coming down with. Gavin Newsom did a lot of the same thing, by the way. When I was in California, a lot of the same stuff. A lot of parallels here, of course. Not a shock, of course. So they moved to the left on this issue, of course, and they want to be stalwart champions of women, of course. So-called. So here's the problem with all this. There's the new crime of interference. This is the big takeaway of this. Abortion was already legal in New Jersey, okay? In the state of New Jersey, it was already legal to do this. So I don't know what the hell she's writing another bill for this for, but she's trying to protect people in terms of coming from out of state now, and now she wants to go after anybody that should go after people, quote unquote, again in this bill, and again beyond shielding medical records, out of state patients. She wants to make sure they're okay, which is interesting because, again, under COVID, you had to show your medical, what was it? Medical passport, did they call it? What do they call that? I can't remember the name of it. I think it was a medical passport. Yeah, your medical history is your own history now. Just when you're, killing your unborn child, that's totally fine. That's fine. When if you want to come into an establishment, you got to show that you've been injected with experimental mRNA technology. That is totally fine. When you want to kill somebody in utero, though, that's completely up to you. No interference with reproductive health care services. That's fine. Privacy, absolutely. Any other medical freedom? No, not at all. Not under Mikie, Sherrill, of course. And she has all these things in here that, intentionally trying to injure, threaten, intimidate, physically obstruct individuals from attempting to access or get access to gender-affirming care or reproductive care. You'll face serious criminal charges. Now, I want to stop and just let everybody know. This is already the law. I don't know. By the way, she was in Congress before this. I don't know how she wouldn't know this. But we already have the FACE Act, ladies and gentlemen. This is back in 1994. It's a federal law that prohibits the force and threat and intimidation, any obstruction against individuals trying to enter a reproductive healthcare service provider. That's it. And by the way, you also can't attack those exercising religious freedom, because then it would come with a criminal sentence with it. Same thing for anyone trying to damage private property at these facilities. So you can't do it already. So what's the purpose of this then? What is she doing? She's trying to write vague language to remove people, to criminalize their freedom of speech. That's what it comes down to. This is what it's all about. So yeah, you already cannot attack somebody. And by the way, I would never attack anybody. I know everyone listening to my show would also say the same thing. You never right to put your hands on anyone, block them running in the facility. That's already a law. It's already been a law for over 32 years. So what's the purpose of this language in the bill if it's already a federal law? What is she doing with this? Now, the New Jersey Right to Life strongly condemned the legislation, arguing that the terms used, such as threat or intimidation or coerce, I guess if you're praying in front of a Planned Parenthood, if you will, that could, intimidate somebody, apparently. And then they can call authorities and remove you, right? And then with her new law, you could be under, what does it say here? It says plaintiffs are eligible to receive at least $1,000 per violation in addition to attorney fees, punitive damages, and other legal relief. Yeah. Yep. And look at this one. There's other offenses on here as well, depending on the degree of it. So what she's trying to do is make it so if they, for instance, see you trying to, again, coerce, intimidate, hold a sign, that's coercion. So anything can be labeled as coercion, should that person feel that. So then, for instance, they could be arrested. They can obviously serve any plethora of these penalties that she has now written into law. So in other words, they're making it easier to go after pro-life advocates. Again, I'm not talking about people attacking people, blocking people, accosting people, shouting at people. That's not what's at stake here. She's making it so freedom of speech, again, is the exact same thing they go after now. So she's actually going after the First Amendment, the rights of these people to go into these facilities and have whatever surgery they want is already protected under the law. So that's just a bit stupid to me. She had to invent all this, I would say. But that's really what it comes down to, folks. By the way, the inclusion of the transgender health care, if you will, also in the bill, sparked intense debate among Republican lawmakers regarding parental consent. So in other words, she wants to go Gavin Newsom. Anybody that wants to come and have this or that chopped off, sewed off, sawed off, whatever, just come to California, come to New Jersey. You'll be just fine under the Democratic leadership. Sad enough to say to you. Right, folks. So I think we all could decide for ourselves that this is probably not the right way to go about things, certainly in the state of New Jersey. But they're pushing everything to the left, and now they want to go after, looks like, for the time being, they want to go after the First Amendment. Anyone praying at a clinic, anyone with a sign at a clinic, that's now intimidation. That's now coercion. It's now a threat. We've got to go after these people. That's what it comes down to, folks, in the state of New Jersey, sadly enough. That'll conclude today's show, ladies and gentlemen. Another week in the books. Thank you again for being here as always. I appreciate you so much. Please share the show if you can. Make sure, everybody, that you're staying prepped with anything you might need to be self-sufficient at all times, especially in uncertain times as we face right now. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. I'll see you back here on Monday as always. Till next time, be good, stay busy. God bless.